In our last video we have created the UI for our chat application, and in this video we are going to create a room for our chat users. And in order to do that, let's create a model. Just like how we have created a model for username creation, we will create a model inside our chat application to create a room. And to do that, first of all, go to chat container. Inside that, go to our model, and over here in the model create another folder and call it create room model. Inside this we will create a JSX file and a file for the style CSS. Okay, and inside this create room model.jsx we'll create a React functional component. So for this model we are again going to use Bootstrap 5 model, and to do that go to Bootstrap official website, and under components go to model, and again we will be using the component model that we have used previously. So copy the first option and then paste it on our Visual Studio Code editor. Inside our create room model, just remove this div and paste the content that we have copied right now. Let's format the code. We will remove the tab index over here first of all. Also we will change the class is equals to and replace it with the class name. Some cosmetic changes: we will not be having two buttons in the footer, so we can remove the close button over here. We will be closing our model based on the close button at the top, as well as we will add a backdrop, and clicking on the backdrop will close the model. So let's change this title and mention create room. Over here instead of save changes we will use word create. And now we can remove this paragraph or body. Instead of it we will be using label, and we will also have an input below this label. So let's do that, and we will give this input an ID and call this ID room name. And similarly for our label 4 field we will add this ID over here, and on this label we will give it a class name, and we will give it a class called column, and we will give it a class name called column form label. So let's do that. And on our input we will again give it a class, and this class will be form control. Also this input will be having a placeholder, and over here we will be writing room name, and this will be required. So let's write it over here, required. Since you only want to render our model on the client side and it won't be rendered on the server, so let's use the browser state that we have created in the previous model, similar to that. Also we will need a state in order to store the room name, so let's do that as well. Also at the time of our client side rendering for the first time, we will be setting this is browser state. So let's call the use effect for it. And set this state over here. Once this is done, we will also be using React DOM in order to create a portal, since this is a model and we will be creating at the root level. So let's import React DOM from React DOM. And over here we will be assigning a variable to store our JSX, and conditionally we will show it on the UI. So let's do that again. Let's create a model UI variable, and it will check if the browser is there, means we are on the client side, and in that case only we will render our UI. So let's cut this from over here, and if it's not a case, then our ternary operator will return null. So we have our variable ready, and let's copy this and return this variable instead of JSX directly and save this file. So we'll create a React portal by writing react dom.create portal, and our portal takes two arguments. One is the JSX element and the second argument is, let's close this over here with our second argument. Let's place comma and we'll use document.getElement by id, and we will be rendering it at the id that we have created, that is Next.js model root, and we can save this now. So once this is saved, let's check if we can open our create React model on our chat container. And also before that we have to add one more class over here, which is display block. So let's add that over here, which is d block. Also for our model dialog, we'll have model dialog center, so let's do that as well, and save this. And now if we go back to our chat container, let's collapse this and open our chat container, and over here we will again have to create a state in order to show the room model conditionally. So let's do that over here once again. Also, since we will be showing our create room model conditionally on the button click over here for create room, as well as we will be closing our model through the close button inside our model, let's create two event handlers for them. One would be the show model handler, so let's write it down. And another handler would be to close the model, so let's write it as well. And inside the onShow method, we will set the create room model to true, and inside our onClose model we will set it to false. And in order to open our model, first let's assign our create room button the event for it, and we will assign it by using onClick onShow create room model handler. And we will also pass our onClose model handler to the component for our model. So let's import the model first, similar to how we have imported the create user model. By writing create room model is equals to dynamic So we have our create room model imported, so let's conditionally show it over here. Let's go to the end, and over here we'll use show create room model. If it's the case, let's show the UI for our model, and before that let's create a variable to hold our UI. Copy this and we'll show it conditionally over here. If the show create room model is true, and if it's not true, we will not show anything. and we'll pass our own close model handler over here to this component. So let's do that now. Let's assign the props. Let's format the code and save it to see what happens. And also we can assign this event that we have passed to the component and use it over here. So first let's go to the model and open the create room model JSX file and grab the props that we have passed right now. And on the click of this close button, we will be assigning it the close event handler. So if we click on the close button, it will trigger this action, and then in the end, in our chat container, our state for the show create model will turn to false and the model will not be displayed. So after this is done, let's save it. So let's start our project with that and use npm run dev command and start the project, and we'll find that there are some errors in the application, and let's see what are those errors. Before starting our project, let's go inside this folder and open our terminal in this folder, and over here let's run npm run dev to start our development server. So we can see our development server is running successfully, and if we go on our browser and create room model, if we can click it, we can see that it shows an error that use state is not imported. So we can fix that easily by going to our chat container model, and for the model of create room, we will find the error occurs on the line number 5 because use state is not imported. So let's go to the JSX file and import the use effect and use state and save it. Now if we refresh our browser and click on create room model, it opens the model we have created, but it doesn't shows it in the center. Let's see why that happens. So let's inspect our model, and over here you can see that the spelling for dialog has some issues, and if I fix it over here, you can see that the dialog appears in the center of the screen, and let's fix that in the code as well. And the code for our model, if we fix the dialog spelling and save it, we can see that even on refreshing, our model would be appearing in the center of the screen. One more thing which is missing over here is the backdrop that we had previously, and let's try. If we click on the close button, it closes our model, and if we open it, it opens back again. Now with this, let's add a backdrop, as well as once the backdrop is there, we will also add the room event for this, so that we can save the room and create it for the socket.io. So to add a backdrop, go to our create room model.jsx file, and over here just under the model and where we have display block, create another div, and this div will have class name, but we'll be passing our styles over here from the CSS file that we have created. So let's use the dynamic CSS over here and use $ curly braces styles dot. We will name our class as backdrop, as well as we will give this backdrop a position fixed and height 100 as well as width of 100. And in our CSS file, let's go and create the backdrop class that we have declared over there, and we'll give it background color similar to what we have given to our previous model, as well as we will give it opacity of 0.8 and save this. Similarly save this as well, and let's see first of all what appears on the UI, and then we will add the close button to it. So over here on our UI, if I click on create room, it says that the style is not defined. So let's import the styles first. Inside our code, let's import the styles. And save this. Also we have a little typo over here. Spelling of position needs to be position. So let's fix that as well. And if we save it, let's go back to our browser, and over here we can see that a create room model appears to the center of the screen, as well as it has a backdrop. So on click of this backdrop, we need to close this model as well. So let's do that as well. So on click of our backdrop, we need to close this model. So we'll simply copy our on click event handler over here from the close button and use it over here on the backdrop. Format our code and save this. Let's go back to our browser and refresh this and click on create room. And now if we click on backdrop, our backdrop closes the model, and also this button closes the model, which seems perfectly fine. Now next what we will be doing is we will store the room state, as well as we will show some error message over here like we did for the username, and we will store the state to the index.js file, right? So let's proceed with that. So first of all, let's go to our src pages index.js file, and over here let's create an event handler just below our constant username handler. We'll call it on create room handler, and it will receive an argument called room name when the room name is created from a model. Also, once our room is created, it would be the default room selected for the users to chat in. So let's create a state for it as well. Let's call it selected room. And over here in our on create room handler, we will set the selected room to the room that user has created for now. Also, we'll pass the state for selected room as well as the event handler to our chat container. So let's do that. We have passed the state. Also, let's pass the event handler. Save it, and let's go inside our chat container. And over here in our props, we will be using the selected room as well as our on create room handler function. Over here in our create room model, we will pass the on create room handler function. Also for our room container, we will pass the selected room in order to highlight the room that has been selected right now from the list of rooms. Let's save this and format the code. And now let's go inside our create room model, and we will use this event handler once we have created this and verify that the room has been created successfully. So let's do that by first of all declaring a state for the room. Another one would be on submit room name handler. Inside our input, take the value out just like we did before, and before that we'll use event.prevent default. And we'll take the value from our target. And to store the value in our state, we'll check if there exists any error for min and max length. So let's go back to our create user model, and we will simply copy this over here and use it back over here in our on input change handler. So we will have the state for the min and max length error set according to 3 and 12 like we have done before. And once this is done, we will set the state for room name. And now let's use this on change handler on our input on change event, and let's pass on the function that we have. Similarly, we will pass the on submit room name handler to the create button by using on click. It's a typo. Let's remove the additional curly brace, and now let's use the function. Also, we will be disabling the button in case there is an error or there is no value for the room name. Let's add the disable property also over here. Disabled if there is no room name, or if there is a max length error, or if there is a min length error. If that's the case, this button will be disabled. So let's go back to our on submit room name handler, and here we will check if the room name is there and there is no min length error and there is no max length error. Only if that's true, we will pass on the value of our room name to our on create room handler, and we'll also trim the spaces for it. We need to mention and over here. Let's fix that and save it. Also, we have our room name input value over here instead of username input value. So let's fix that by replacing username input value with room name input value and save it. So with that being done, let's check our browser to see what appears on the UI. And if we go back to our browser and click on create room, and if we enter some room name, there is no error and we can see everything works fine. But in order to create it, we have created the room, but the dialog doesn't closes. So let's do that first by going to our on submit room name handler, and we will close our dialog by calling on close create room model handler and clicking on save. And now if we click on create room and enter some room name and click on create, the model closes, but we still don't see the error messages just like we saw it before for the min and max length. So let's do that also. So going back to our create user model, over here just below our input we have these conditional messages for is min length and max length error. So let's copy them and use them over here just below our input, and let's format it. But we don't have input valid feedback over here. Instead of that, we will use text danger at both the places. Also, we will not be using div. Instead of that, we will use paragraph. Format the code and save it. Now let's go back again to our browser. Let's click on create room and let's start typing to see if we see the error. So now we can see that we see the error just like we saw it before for the username, and our button gets disabled when the error appears. But it doesn't works perfectly for the error message on min length. So let's see why it does that thing, and let's fix that as well. So inside our code we have both the places mentioned as max length, and let's fix that and save. Now let's refresh our browser again and click on create room, and now if we have the min length of 3 error, we can see that the button gets disabled, and same goes for the max length. So with that we are done with this. Now in next video what we are going to do is we are going to use socket.io in order to create the rooms at our server, as well as we will be passing on the messages in real time between multiple rooms and multiple users. So I'm really excited about the next video guys. So see you there. Bye.